Mollie, let's start with the NFL. What stood out to you with the way the NFL laid out this schedule?
Listen, Austin, I don't know if you've slept in the last week, but I certainly haven't with everything going on. But in terms of the playoffs, I'm really interested in what's going to happen with the Steelers Ravens game. It's Amazon's first NFL playoff game. I spoke with them about it, how they're preparing for it. They're really excited around it. And Amara Jackson, he's been so fun to watch this year. And then obviously the Vikings and Rams matchup on ABC and ESPN on Monday. It's a great schedule.
For Amazon's first playoff game, they did them a favor by giving them a very big matchup. They paid $150 million, Mollie, to have that playoff game. This was the one that was on Peacock last year. It's going to be the first time that Amazon has had a doubleheader. They have a game, an NFL game, leading into what they're going to have in prime time. It is Chargers Texans that's on CBS. Something of note, though, the Texans, every single time since they started up that franchise, they have been in that Saturday afternoon wildcard window every time they've made it. Pretty funny. If maybe they can develop a more marquee attraction to get them into a different window in the future. But for now, stuck on Saturdays at 4:30 p.m.
I'm glad you brought that up, Austin. This is the first time in the 3 years that Amazon has had the exclusive rights to that Thursday Night Football package, and now adding on that Black Friday game, and now adding on the playoff game. This is the first time there'll be another NFL game the same day that Amazon broadcasts it. They're excited about that. They're hoping it's a lead in, even though it'll obviously be on different networks.
Mollie, I'm also paying attention to what Amazon's going to be able to draw for this game. It's around 23 million viewers that Peacock was able to get for that streaming audience last year. That was topped by the Netflix NFL games. Those were just north of 24 million viewers. So can Amazon deliver a bigger streaming audience? I think it's going to be tough to match what Netflix was able to draw on Christmas Day, but it's going to be well north of 20 million viewers. That would be a record for them. They set their own record at around 17 million or so earlier this season during one of those Thursday night games. So that's something I'm going to be paying attention to from an audience metric standpoint.
The familiarity has been built out over the last few years. The first year of Thursday Night Football, people weren't necessarily aware of exactly how to access it, but they have developed this system and are going to have a really good audience.
Now, speaking of Netflix, Mollie, WWE Raw got started on Monday night on Netflix. What was your reaction to the beginning of that package?
They rocked it. We had our own Chris Smith out there. I spoke with WWE actually Sunday night ahead of their first broadcast there out at Intuit Dome. They had been out there since Thursday. You know, they actually had to empty out before load in because the Clippers were playing Saturday night. So when I spoke with WWE, there's a whole lot of technical innovations they had for this production, right? They utilized the Goodyear blimp. Netflix did a massive drone show Friday night ahead of it. The promotion for WWE Raw was out of this world, and it's a much wider audience.
They're going global, and they, like you said, they brought out the star power for that first event at Intuit Dome. You had The Rock come out there, and he was on stage. You made that Squid Game reference. He was pointing up to the Netflix executives like Bella Bajaria and Ted Sarandos sitting in that suite. They had a WWE belt, so plenty of star power in and around the arena. It looked good. They had a good utilization of that Halo board at the Intuit Dome. I thought it was a really strong start. We haven't seen any audience numbers. That was a little surprising. I don't know if we're going to see a Nielsen number for that, so it's very curious what sort of audience numbers we're going to see week in and week out for that WWE Raw on Netflix.
Well, that possible Nielsen number is something you and I are both checking in on. But that wasn't the only sport that debuted this week. TGL, what do you think?
You know, Mollie, I watched this whole telecast on Tuesday night because I was kind of intrigued. We've talked and written ad nauseum about this. And our colleague Josh Carpenter was on the ground. He and I were texting. It had a very game feel. It was almost like I was watching an esports event, like a bunch of people playing a game. Granted, these are professional golfers, some of the biggest names in the world, and there was a lot more, actual golf skill involved. It wasn't just a video game, but it was new. That whole venue down there outside Orlando looked really cool. They did a really good job. You can tell Mike McCarley did a very detailed job in making it a made-for-TV telecast. As a casual golf fan, am I going to want to watch week in and week out? I'll watch Tiger's debut and maybe I'll watch Rory's, but I want to see what sort of innovations they do later in the season to keep me coming back as a casual fan.
Austin, you have told me that your favorite part of golf is the beer that you get to drink on the
Oh, yeah.
golf court.
That's what they were missing out. It was, bringing in some golf cart into the studio setup. They could have woven that in somehow.
Listen, I love driving a good golf cart. Am I good at golf and playing golf? Absolutely not, and you will not find me there. But I think it's an interesting property, and I'm looking forward to seeing, as you've said, what innovations they can do to keep that audience engaged.
Mollie, one of the biggest surprises in the media space of 2025, I know we're only a couple days in, was the resolution between Fubo and Disney, Fox, Warner Brothers Discovery, and the likely launch now of Venue Sports is something we're going to talk about with one of our guests this week, Naveen Sarma from S&P Global. But what do you think of this surprise resolution that essentially resuscitates Venue Sports?
Austin, they kept me very busy. While it was a surprising resolution, it's a good one for all the parties involved. This combination of Fubo and Hulu and live TV, some analysts think it could be put on par with the reach of another virtual MVP like YouTube TV. So this also likely clears the way for Venue to launch. There's still some legal hurdles to come through, but it's the best case scenario for pretty much everyone involved. And Austin, you and I talked about this a couple
Yeah,
podcasts
we kind of left Venue for dead in our predictions. And I think a lot of people did. We were not alone in that. This adds a lot of strength to the Disney sports streaming strategy. I don't think Venue is out of the woods completely. I thought that it was done. I didn't think it would ever get off the ground. And now you have more of an opportunity for Venue to perhaps see the light of day. I don't think it gets done in time for the Super Bowl, but let's see if they can actually get this done without legal challenges, being thrown in their way.
I will say what I've heard, Austin, is that they are trying to launch in front of the Super Bowl. They kept hiring during all these legal woes. They're ready to go.
Mollie, we can also talk a little bit about the college football playoff. Let's first get into some of the quarterfinal numbers. 16.9 million viewers for those 4 games across ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU. And I think it could have been even a little higher. You had, of course, the New Year's Day tragedy, the terrorist act. That moved that Sugar Bowl from what would have been prime time on New Year's Day. Then it got an afternoon slot on January 2nd. The number could have even gone higher, but it was in line, that 16.9 million, where I think it should have been. It wasn't quite what the CFP semifinals had averaged during the previous iteration of the CFP when it was only 4 teams. It was maybe at the bottom level there. These CFP semis now that are starting tonight, we have the Orange Bowl with Notre Dame and Penn State. That's going to be a really big number. I think that's going to be well on the high end of what semifinals have gotten in the CFP era.
Well, first of all, Austin, I want to shout out the excellent story you did this week with Laura Rutledge and her coverage around the Sugar Bowl and just all of CFP with ESPN. I'm Big Ten. You know how I feel about things like Penn State and Notre Dame, but these 4 teams that have made it to the semifinals are phenomenal brands.
Big win for ESPN. These 4 brands, they could not have asked for anything better in their Final Four.
You've got Penn State, Notre Dame, and then on Friday you have Texas and Ohio State, which is going to be a phenomenal matchup, especially Austin. I don't know about you, but I love that none of the first 4 seeds made it. You have truly, this is what I love about college football.
It's something they're going to look at, though. That's something they have to look at, is because those teams were off for so long. Yeah, all of those top 4 seeds did lose in that quarterfinal round. And that's something that the conference commissioners and the athletic director of Notre Dame and the head of the CFP, Rich Clark, they're going to be talking about in the offseason among changes that they could possibly make.
We will probably see some adjustments next year, but I do think that this is the best of college football. It's what I love about it. It's the teams that are playing the hardest, and just movies like Rudy and stuff like that. This is real life college. I love it.
ADs do love home games, though, so the first round, though, I got to imagine they're going to be keeping that. And we don't talk about Rudy with me, okay? I don't need to see Rudy sacking the Georgia Tech quarterback anymore. He was offsides. Let's just leave that at that.
No, we won't get into that. You and I can talk about this offline. I think Ohio State's going to win the whole thing.
They are hot right now. They are the hottest team. But in terms of audience numbers, I got to say Notre Dame, Penn State is probably going to top Ohio State, Texas in that Cotton Bowl, only because that's a Friday night game. Notre Dame, Penn State gets a Thursday night window. I think there's a better audience number there.
That's fair. But do you know that Buckeye audience? They're watching.
It is a national audience. It really is. Some icing on the cake, though, for ESPN during this whole time, during bowl season, is they had their best non-CFP bowl numbers since the 2019-2020 season. You had incredible numbers for things like the Alamo Bowl, Coach Prime, Colorado. That helped that event, and it's a long time running. See, its best audience ever. And you saw really strong numbers for events like the Pop-Tarts Bowl and a number of bowls. Even with an expanded college football playoff, there is still fan interest in those bowls, and there might even be room for some more.
They're made for TV products. Some games, like you have a Pinstripe Bowl in New York that'll get huge audience turnout.
That saw some of its best numbers in years, and with two teams that I wouldn't have picked to be a very strong matchup. But even with opt-outs and transfer portal and all that talk, there were fans still tuning in to see these schools, to see these games.
And attendance might be down, but Austin, I went to a bowl game last year. You went to one this year.
Yep.
They're fun.
I couldn't believe that Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, in the Birmingham Bowl doesn't even have a title sponsor. That was able to still draw north of 4 million viewers. It was just incredible.
I was rooting for your Yellow Jackets, Austin.
No, it wasn't meant to be. Still a great season. I'm glad I went down. It was cold, it was rainy, but I'm glad I went down to the event. I won't blame the referees at all, but congratulations to the Commodores on their win. Molly, one last topic, the NHL Winter Classic. It moved to a new window this season. It was in that New Year's Eve afternoon window before the primetime college football playoff quarterfinal because they're trying to get away from football so they can kind of have a window to themselves. It is such a good at-event product. You look at it on TV, it looks fantastic. It's always sold out. But for the second consecutive year, that game, it was on TNT and True TV. It's the least watched Winter Classic that they've had. So next season, something that our colleague Alex Silverman reported is they're going to be moving it to January 2nd to really try again to get out of the way of football and find a way to increase the audience. Do you think it's a good move?
Absolutely. It deserves it. The NHL Winter Classic is such an amazing event, and I'm actually really sad I couldn't go in person this year. It was at Wrigley Field. That would have been incredible to see hockey at Wrigley. But I think it deserves its own window. As you said, it's a great TV product. And Austin, I don't know how often you go to hockey games, but it is one of the best in-person experiences.
I agree, Molly. In-venue hockey, incredible. I'm 3 hours away from the closest one, unfortunately. That's in Raleigh with the Hurricanes. But any chance I get, I like to take in an NHL game. Such a good sport at the venue.